That worked. Is it all good on your side, guys? Can you still see me sharing the screen? Okay, I think I fixed it.
That sounds great.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so we just completed the roll call. We're going to move into the news part of the project's discussion. What I did today was I chose aspects of the project that we've done something or something's coming up that fits into the strategic vision for the year. So just to recap on the strategy side, we have huge traction in Asia, and we have significant interest in North America and in Europe. So in 2020, we want to double down on activities in Europe and in North America to try to foster the same type of community we've seen in Asia. We also want to make sure that globally people are ready for OpenChain as it becomes more widely adopted, and of course that OpenChain as a project is well positioned as it becomes an ISO standard. So, to kick that off, the most important item we have is OpenChain ISO. The status of ISO is as we expected. The Joint Development Foundation, part of the Linux Foundation ecosystem, is a pass submitter, so a high-speed ISO submitter. That was completed last month. We're working on the OpenChain ISO paperwork right now, and this will take us into the pass fast-track process at relatively high speed. We'd be looking at a situation where we can expect to be an ISO standard within approximately 3 to 6 months of submission. So we're still optimistic about April. I'm currently working on our ISO submission paperwork with Seth from the Joint Development Foundation, David Rudin from Microsoft, and Rex, who's our ISO editor. I'm doing a lot of the typing on this one, but it's their expertise that will help carry us forward because they're so familiar with the process. Anyway, long story short, somewhere around the beginning of Q3, the beginning of Q2, or later in Q2, we're on target to be an ISO standard. So a lot of what you'll see in the next few months is preparing for that. We started some of it last year. For example, we began to have regular steering committee meetings to formally vote on the standard. We began to message around ISO, but more than messaging, we began to make more materials to help people deal with OpenChain and quickly answer simple questions like, is the specification free? Is it easily available? And how can I double check if I conform to it or not? So everything is going well on the ISO front. The threads are coming together, and we're being supported by some fantastic experts in the field. Some people from Microsoft, some people from Joint Development Foundation. All of that informs everything else we're doing this year. There's nothing more important than our ISO path, because that lays the foundation for adoption beyond our group of knowledgeable companies, beyond the tech sector, and of course, beyond the area where companies have open source expertise. We're looking at a situation where ISO standardization takes us directly to sales and procurement people. And they might not have much awareness of open source, they might just have some template language and so on, and we're going to be providing them with a great solution for using their technology, using their purchasing, using their sales, by saying very simply, look, here's the ISO standard, the one and only world standard for compliance. This is the solution to using open source. This is the solution to buying open source. So that's all going very well. We're happy with the progress. Now, OpenChain at CES. We're talking a lot with our fantastic community of stakeholders, and a lot of what we do relates to the Linux Foundation ecosystem. To a very large extent, we're talking to the 1,500 companies around Linux Foundation that have a pretty solid understanding of open source and know where they're going. That isn't always true with regards to stakeholders being inside Linux Foundation. Sometimes we're talking with companies outside of Linux Foundation. So, for example, in Japan, Mercari and DNA. One of those is a little bit like eBay for millennials, and the other is a game company. They're knowledgeable in open source, but they're outside the Linux Foundation ecosystem. However, by and large, our primary audience has been companies inside Linux Foundation, companies which we know have quite a lot of open source knowledge. And we've been talking to our crowd. But now we have to deal with a situation where we're going to be talking to tens of thousands of companies outside of the Linux Foundation ecosystem. As we go into ISO, as they seek information, they seek support. And CES, January 7 to 9, was an opportunity to start flying the flag for OpenChain in an area where we meet a lot of these companies that aren't familiar with open source or aren't familiar with Linux system. They aren't familiar with the methodologies we regard as second nature. So that was a fantastic opportunity to reach out to them, to put down a flag. And it was led by Endo-san from Toyota. And we had a whole bunch of volunteers. And I think they had a pretty good time. Endo-san, could you say a few words about the event?
Yes, we have the little kiosk of the AGL booth of the CES. And we distribute 1,000 leaflets. And we also exchange the information with the attendees. About 200 people coming to our booth and discuss and we explain about the open source compliance and OpenChain project and AGS demo of the Linux Foundation tools. That's all.
And Sam, thank you so much for leading that. And the fact that you could address over 200 people directly, that you shared 1,000 of our leaflets talking about open source compliance is a huge accomplishment. And so my great thanks to you and the team. And also everyone, this is where we debuted our new t-shirts. We had some nifty new t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool t-shirts we wear, and we distribute it at the Automotive workshop also.
So during 2020, actually, you'll be seeing a little bit more OpenChain gear. The idea here is to put our trademark and our message onto people, onto documentation, so that it becomes part of the public awareness. And the t-shirt is an easy one to do. Endo-san, thank you so much, not only for doing stuff like talking to the people, distributing the leaflets, but also things like distributing the t-shirt as branding, because people will turn up at events with that, and it'll help us bit by bit. So really cool. And that brings us to the Automotive Workgroup meeting. This happened adjacent to CES. It happened in the Las Vegas Strip. And Eno-san, I understand this meeting was also a nice success.
Yes, we have over 20 people join the meeting. And for presentation from 4 people. And we discussed direction of Automotive work group in this year. And we discussed about we making the output, some output material in this year. And at the same time, we also collaborate with standardization such as ELISA. ELISA is one of the Linux Foundation projects to make functional safety standard of the open source software. So I think to collaborate as a project and to contribute to making to make standard is a very important thing for us.
And Endo-san, that is fantastic. And everyone, this touches on a dialogue we're having increasingly. People are mentioning export control, functional safety, security in the same breath as open source compliance. So increasingly we're in a situation where people see all of these as complementary activities and activities where they can learn from each other. A quick example is that when it comes to security, if you adopt OpenChain and if you can identify the software packages, you've already taken a huge step towards effective security, because then you can identify the packages that are out of date. So people sometimes ask us, will OpenChain cover lots of other areas? And the answer really is, OpenChain itself is laser focused on open source compliance. But we can and will try to make sure that we interoperate with other activities and foster new activities to close off each of the areas where people want help. So working together with, for instance, the ELISA project on functional safety, keeping our eye on standards like ISO 26262, that's the functional safety standard, is as much a part of our mission as, for instance, general outreach. We see a world where people stack standards, where people might be using OpenChain for the processes in compliance, SPDX for bill of materials, ISO 26262 for functional safety. And we want to make sure that as people stack standards, as people stack solutions, everything is as elegant and as simple as possible. So working with ELISA is really cool. And Endo-san, thank you for leading that workshop. Our automotive work group is incredible. We have stakeholders.
Yes, my pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's something huge. You've got stakeholders from all over the world, all types of companies. It's remarkable. And I think directly because of this automotive work group, we have things like increasing engagement from companies in Germany, let's say BMW, Daimler, and we have a whole bunch of activity in other areas like South Korea, and we have engagement in North America. So, Endo-san, it's a very exciting thing, and let's get working on the next automotive work group meeting soon.
Okay, yeah, I will plan.
Now, the next topic comes directly off this. We have recently announced that OpenChain will have a German work group starting in early February. Siemens have offered to host us on the 6th of February in the beautiful city of Nuremberg in South Germany. We put out the call for attendees, and we already have 31 people from 25 companies confirmed to attend this German work group. It's a remarkable start. We hope to have the first meeting in Nuremberg, 6th of February, and we'll continue on a quarterly schedule probably. Siemens are hosting us first. We'll talk with the other companies and see who's going to host us second. I think that starting with 31 people from 25 companies is the biggest work group start we've had. The biggest one prior was probably Japan, when we had around 21 people from about 12 to 15 companies. So Germany is starting off really strongly in a few weeks. It's very exciting. In China, we're going to hold our third work group meeting in March, actually very close to the German one, hosted by Xiaomi, the telephone, TV, and other services company. That's going to be a solid event to try to keep the momentum in China and also try to make sure that everyone is fully briefed on ISO. And finally, we're just about to announce that we will host the first US work group shortly. Facebook has offered us space on the 13th of March. That's just after the Linux Foundation Member Summit in California. And we're going to do that. We're going to take that time on the 13th of March on the afternoon in the Bay Area. We're going to be at Facebook's headquarters, Facebook's offices in Palo Alto. We're going to take time there with about 20 people to get this started. Our space is capped because of the room we have available. We'll look to have a lot of the Silicon Valley companies come in, have a briefing, meet their friends. Which brings me to the next item, which is really First of all, to say thank you to everyone involved in the work groups in Japan, Korea, China, or India. And also to put it to everyone that if you're in a geography that we are not currently covering, for instance, the United Kingdom or let's say France, if you have an interest in a work group, just reach out and let us know. And this applies not just to the people on the call. Our calls are recorded, video is available, and many people see them over time. So if you're watching this later, if you're interested in a work group, reach out to us on the project mailing lists. And on that note, we're through to any other business. I just wanted to take a moment here to pause and to see if people have any questions or comments.
This is Tom Osaka from Fujitsu, and can I make one question?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, you say that there will be a first work group in the United States, and there will be some attendees, and will the members overlapping with two group members or just the different members? Because I think that in the United States, the activities are just focused on mainly in to the group and not for the open chain activities itself. And I just want to confirm that who will be the attendees for the newly starting work group in the United States.
It's a very good question, and I think the answer is because we'll be in the Bay Area, we probably expect mostly to-do group members. And in some ways, this meeting will probably be an opportunity for the to-do group members to get more involved in OpenChain. And my guess, I don't know, it entirely depends on them, but my guess is that we might be holding future OpenChain meetings beside to-do group meetings, maybe taking an hour or so beside one of their meetings in the future, because the overlap is huge. And to this day, until now, we have sort of relied on the to-do group members talking about OpenChain rather than having a work group in North America. So this is where we formally have it, but the audience will be the same. Very good question, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional question that is to the group holding periodical face-to-face meeting in the United States, or just utilizing the timing of conference to just get together? I don't know exactly what activity or frequencies that the to the group is actually working.
Yes, it's usually two things. They hold meetings at to-do group member offices, and they often have a to-do group meeting at big conferences. But their meetings are usually not super publicized. So, for instance, by way of example, I have missed several of their meetings because I didn't see the date being advertised. And I think this is because it's a group of people who often know each other quite well. So they often communicate directly more than in official public channels. But of course they do mention their meetings. It's just I've missed it several times. So the short version is they have meetings at member companies. Those meetings take place relatively regularly. They're all based in the Bay Area. And they don't publicize it a lot. But if OpenChain is holding meetings beside them, we will be publicizing our meetings a lot, just like usual. It shouldn't be inconvenient. It's not because to-do group is trying to be secretive. It's just that to-do group has its own pattern of having meetings, the companies know each other, and so on. I think we'll cooperate neatly, but I do think our way of communicating meetings will be very different. OpenChain will be telling the whole world when we have a work group meeting. To-do group will be telling people inside to-do group when they have a meeting. But there's no conflict in that. It's just a different method of advertising.
Thank you very much, and it was very helpful information for me because I subscribed to the group mailing list, but there's very few posts, and I cannot imagine how often or how much of frequency or just amount that to the group is actually working. So yeah, it was very helpful. Thank you very much for that.
And Tom, I actually have the same experience because I basically watch the to-do group general list for activity, and I don't see a lot of information about meetings and so on. So I have the same user experience as you, and certainly I will be suggesting to to-do group members that maybe the promotion of to-do group can be improved, because I know people in Japan are asking about it. And if I find it difficult to get information watching the general channels, I mean, if I just email Chris or something, I can get any information I need. But just watching the general channel, if I find it difficult to get information, then certainly everyone interested in China, Japan, Korea, India will also find it difficult. Maybe that's an area where they can improve, and I will certainly give them that feedback.
Yeah, I honor their way of doing the meetings, and so if there's a chance to just to get involved, yeah, I'm very interested to do that. Thank you.
I'll take that as an action item. I think that they cover open source program offices, we cover compliance. We're so close to each other that we should cooperate as much as possible.
Okay.
Very
That's
good question.
all for my question, and thank you very much for that.
No, really good questions and important questions. We have a lot to do together, and the question is just how do we coordinate properly? And we're working that out now. So if someone is on the call and they're new to this and they're wondering what are we talking about, To-Do Group is a Linux Foundation project focused on how to run open source program offices. Just like OpenChain, it's part of the general Linux Foundation governance projects. And their focus, their origin is Silicon Valley. So companies like Twitter and Google and Facebook sharing notes. They hold physical meetings in Silicon Valley, and they're gradually spreading around the world. I know that To-Do Group Europe is just starting up. You can find To-Do Group material online. They have lots of case studies and other information. The only challenge we're talking about is how to learn about the physical meetings, because the Silicon Valley group is very close, and therefore they can communicate easily to each other. So if we're international, it's harder to find out about the meetings. But nowadays, international people are getting interested in the meetings. And in OpenChain, we're sort of the most international governance project in the world. So we're getting the feedback about how to improve, not just OpenChain, but also other projects like To Do. So that's why we were talking about that. Okie dokie. Any other business? All right. If there's no other business, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who joined. And I am looking forward to talking to many of you on the first Monday call. I'm going to be arranging some presentations on our first Monday calls with some exciting topics around areas like compliance methodology, standardization, and so on. These meetings, these presentations will be recorded, so if you're in Asia, you can't join the first Monday call, you'll be able to get the YouTube videos shortly afterwards. On that note, thank you everyone, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.